L'Shana Tovah. Welcome to Beth Judah. Last year at Rosh Hashanah, I asked everyone to dig deep and to participate in our 12 months of giving. Feeding the hungry was and continues to be an urgent need, but none of us could have imagined just barely a month later, our 12 months of giving would become such an emergency because Hurricane Sandy hit us. The text Unatana Tokef, a piyut in our Musaf service, came to life, and the whole concept of who will live and who will die, who will suffer an earthquake, and who will experience a hurricane. I can say that we did. And even today, there are people continuing to deal with the after effects of Hurricane Sandy, and that there are people continuing to help. The acts of tzedakah I have witnessed over this last year are nothing short of miraculous and bring this prayer to life. I am proud to say that our congregation, our community did incredible work and helped so many people. Throughout the year, there are people who have donated food and funds to help those in need. There are people here who have given of their time to volunteer in our community. And I am very proud of those who stepped forth in the midst of the storm and immediately after helped. People checked up on their neighbors and their friends. People took their friends into their homes, and some were galvanized to action. Our synagogue board invited a group called the American Jewish Society for Service to bring 7 teenagers and their counselors to sleep here in our building so they could spend part of their summer volunteering with the Atlantic City Long-Term Recovery Group. They spent their time helping to rehab houses. We are hoping there will be another group here in October and again in December. To me, all of us have experienced Unatana Tokef's answer. Utshuva, utfilah, tzedakah, ma'avirin et roah hagzeirah. Tshuva, tfilah, and tzedakah have the power to transform the harshness of our destiny. And as I shared with you yesterday, tfilah teaches us to open our hearts. But that's only the first step towards transforming our destiny. Today I want to explore how tzedakah teaches us to open our hands and our hearts. Tzedakah comes from the root word tzedek, justice. And in a sense, tzedakah is an act of bringing justice to the world. Most of the time we think of tzedakah as writing a check to help the poor and the needy. But it is also bringing justice to the world. Deuteronomy teaches us, Efes kilo v'hayeh bicha evyon. There shall be no needy among you. A few verses later, the Torah prescribes the way for us to accomplish that goal. If, however, there is a needy person among you, one of your kinsmen in any of your settlements, in the land that the Lord your God is giving you, do not harden your heart and shut your hand against your needy kinsman. Rather, you must open your heart and lend him sufficient for that which he needs. In the aftermath of Sandy, Beth Judah became a primary conduit for tzedakah because we helped to strike a balance between people wanting to donate and what was needed to be donated. We helped to direct the items and donations needed, not what people wanted to give. We refused clothing because it was so hard to store and so much would go unused. A colleague here had been a pastor in Homestead, Florida during Hurricane Andrew, and he told me that the second crisis after that horrendous hurricane was the amount of clothing that was donated. Most of it ended up in landfills. Another synagogue gave our community dozens of Home Depot cards, and others gave us dollars to help others. Beth Judah was and continues to be a tzedakah agent of change and is the foundation for our community. In a recently published study, the National American Jewish Study of Giving, statistically, those who are affiliated with a synagogue give significantly more tzedakah than those who are not. And not only that, but they give significantly more dollars to Jewish and non-Jewish affiliated programs than those who don't belong. Synagogues and their members, they have always been communal stewards of tzedakah dollars. Historically, one of the first institutions founded in a community was a synagogue. not a building, so the Kehillah could collectively lead the efforts of caring for the sick, helping the poor, educating the children of the community. That mission here in America has not changed much over the last 350 years. Kehillot, or synagogues, like Beth Judah, continue to work to help the poor because we are an oasis for the most vulnerable of our community. And while there is more work to be done for sure, Beth Judah brings justice to the world every time we invite someone to be a member who can't afford the dues, and there are those willing to make up the difference. Tzedakah dollars educate our children, and they become the next generation of people who continue the work of bringing justice to the world through acts of their own tzedakah. I am proud of our Kehillah because we have placed an emphasis on the concepts of helping others through Beth Judah's Caring Network. Volunteers cook and deliver meals to members of our Beth Judah family during challenging times. People appreciate the gift because it eases their burden just a bit. And we ensure that all of our children are able to strengthen their Jewish identity through our educational experiences, and we have always ensured that any child who wants a Jewish camping experience or Israel experience can get it because of the generosity of the community. I am amazed at the generosity of the people in our community. But I know that our generosity is dependent upon our attitude towards tzedakah and how we want to bring justice to the world. I once heard a story about a young couple, newlyweds. They're just starting out in life, and it was tough making ends meet. And the wife came home one day from work excitedly, and she said, "Guess what?" The husband answered, "What?" Not really liking guessing games so much. She said, "Great news. I received a $1,000 bonus at work today." And without a breath, she asked, "To which tzedakah should we give $100? The husband replied, "Are you out of your mind? We are struggling, and you want us to give our money away? Maybe one day we can give tzedakah, but not now, when there isn't a penny extra to give." So his wife answered, "Let's try again. Guess what, honey? Wonderful news." He said, "What?" "We have a $900 bonus." Years later, this couple went on to become a philanthropic leader, and through their generosity, they've helped to create a thriving Jewish community. Tzedakah is not about giving it when we have it or when we feel like it. It is remembering that the blessings that we have in our lives are meant to be shared regularly with others. It helps to sustain our world, reminding us that tzedakah is not a nice thing to do. It is something that brings the world back into alignment. Peter Buffett, the son of Warren Buffett, made that kind of statement in a New York Times op-ed a few weeks ago. He wrote that philanthropy has become big business. Peter Buffett makes these comments as a philanthropic leader. His father created philanthropic organizations for each of his children, for them to manage and to lead. This put Peter Buffett in meetings with people he would not have ordinarily met. He commented that heads of state and philanthropic leaders, they wanted to take any and all solutions to resolve a particular issue, even if it wasn't the right one. He cited as an example one such challenge, a challenge to reduce the transmission of AIDS in Africa. So they distributed condoms to sex industry workers. It reduced the rate of transmission, but it did not resolve the underlying issue. Because what happened was, because men were willing to pay even more for unprotected sex. The real issue was not AIDS. The real issue is poverty and the need for women to support their families. Peter Buffett argues that we need to do more that allow those on the ground and in the trenches to set the best path for tzedakah to truly help. He argues that so many rich people give tzedakah to assuage their guilt over having so much, and the poor person having so little. I have 2 houses, and that person lives on the street. So let's just put him in a house. Doesn't matter what it is. And that may be logical. It may even be appropriate. But sometimes that paternalistic approach is wrong. Last week, Bill Suthry, the former executive director of the Atlantic City Rescue Mission, was quoted that it is not the homeless people that are a problem. It is that homeless people have problems. The goal of tzedakah is not to assuage our guilt or to make us feel better when we sleep in our comfortable beds at night. Tzedakah is about our obligation to resolve the challenges and bring justice to the world. Tzedakah is about creating the world we want to live in if we had the power, the resources, and ability. Tzedakah is about creating a generous heart by committing us to opening our hands. Tzedakah is meant to influence the world for the better. Think about it this way. Most of us naturally want to help others. And most of us want to live in a world full of generous people. And in our generosity, we begin to influence the harshness of our destiny and change the world. In Orchot Tzadikim, a 16th century Musar text, it teaches a person who gives 1,000 gold pieces to a worthy person is not as generous as one who gives 1,000 gold pieces to 1,000 different occasions and even to 1,000 such places. In other words, someone who gives 1,000 gold pieces to one person had an impulse to help, to give. Once done, it's done. The impulse is gone. Instead, a person who opens his hand or her hands thousands of times will be spiritually transformed because they will have created a habit of holiness that will extend throughout his or her life. In the truest, purest form, tzedakah is meant to help others. But in real reality, its impact is upon us, the individual. It helps us to grow and to change and to influence the world. Someone told me a story of their experience distributing food immediately after Sandy. This person was driving up and down the streets of our community, distributing bags of food. And she came upon a man and his children. And the man was despondent, he was depressed. And she rolled down the window and she offered him a bag of food. His demeanor completely changed because, as he told her, he knew now how he was going to feed his children that evening. The person who told me the story told me how it impacted her. And to me, this was one moment where one person truly brought justice to the world and restored the dignity of a parent only wanting to feed his children. That transformed the harshness of his destiny. There are many more stories just like that one through how the act of tzedakah has altered the world. I know that because Beth Judah's generosity to families here in our community, and I know that because we have made a difference. In some ways, we have altered a child's future because they got more involved with USY, or a family that would not have educated their child because they didn't have enough money, and we helped them, and now they actively volunteer in our community. And that child will continue to create a strong Jewish identity. In fact, that child will help create a Jewish future. Jewish tradition teaches us, you shall rejoice on your festival of Sukkot, v'samachta v'chagecha. Commanding happiness is a strategic mitzvah. Our tradition certainly mandates rituals. Sitting in the sukkah, shaking the etrog and lulav, sounding the shofar as we've done today, but how do we command an emotion? The United States Declaration of Independence calls for us to have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I'm not sure that the pursuit of happiness means to seek bigger and better vacations, or even to create places that are just for pleasure. Who can live in a nightclub all of the time? Who can lunch? Who can just lunch all of the time? Many of us seek ways in our lives to be useful and to be helpful. And I think the framers of the Declaration of Independence, they knew that the pursuit of happiness means that happiness comes from creating a meaningful life. Rabbi Rebecca Serbu, director of Rabbis Without Borders at Klal, wrote in a beautiful essay for the holidays, "You shall rejoice on your festival, you, your son, your daughter, and your slave, and your maidservant, the Levite, the proselyte, the orphan, and the widow." How does one achieve joy, she wrote? one must help those who have less. The holiday celebration cannot be complete unless space is designated at the table for the orphan and for the widow. Charity is not simply the act of giving money. The formula for achieving happiness is inviting others to your table and treating all people with dignity. Every so often, I see a bumper sticker that says, "Practice random acts of kindness and selfless acts of beauty." What a nice thing to say. And I'm always glad when someone does happen to perform a random act of kindness, because they were moved to do something. And in that moment, more kindness is brought into the world. How can that be bad? But tzedakah is different. It is a mitzvah which is obligated for all people, regardless of whether they are very rich or very poor. Even the smallest of coin given with the intention is a powerful form of generosity. Because when those who have so little to give, they understand that even a small coin makes a difference for someone else. In that moment, God dwells with us, and we transform the harshness of our destiny into the generous world we can create in our own souls and all around us. L'shana Tovah. May we this year practice the midah, the characteristic of generosity, and influence the world, and more importantly, impact upon us.